To get started with tonight's program, which I'm sure is going to be a very helpful and interesting one. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Susan LaPerla, the Director of Programming here at the library, and it is certainly our pleasure to co-sponsor tonight's program with the New Canaan branch of the American Association of University Women. So thank you for all the hard work that you've put into this program, which many of us will benefit from. It is being taped, and we will be uploading it to our Vimeo site, which you can connect to through the newcanaanlibrary.org website. So give us a couple of days to do that, and you can then look at it again or tell friends of yours who aren't here that they can see the program on the website. And now I'd like to turn the program over to Cindy Bloom-Leahy, who is the president of the New Canaan chapter of AAUW. Cindy, welcome.
Good evening. Welcome to the March meeting of the AAUW New Canaan branch. I want to thank the New Canaan Library for co-sponsoring this program with us this evening. And before we begin our program for the evening, I do want to remind people about our signature event. The Book and Author Luncheon that is sponsored by the AAUW is scheduled for Thursday, April 24th at the Woodway Country Club. The event is open to the public. Invitations have been mailed to members and those who have attended previously, but anyone that has any questions, would like to attend, would like an invitation emailed to them or sent, let us know this evening. Tonight we are for the Book and Author Luncheon, we are fortunate to have 4 authors this year, and they're all very different. So tonight, the New Canaan branch is honored to have Chief of Police Leon Krolikowski as our speaker, one of our speakers. Before we begin, I want to highlight some of Chief Krolikowski's background. He's lived in New Canaan since 1991, and he said that being a New Canaan police officer in his town means everything. Chief Krolikowski's credentials are quite impressive. He was an honors scholar while an undergraduate at the University of Connecticut. Next, he received a law degree from Quinnipiac University School of Law, graduated from the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Academy, received a driving government performance certificate from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, and his latest educational accomplishment has been his MBA from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Tonight he's joined by Captain John DiFrederico and Sergeant Andrew Walsh of the New Canaan Police Department and Detective Mark Solomon of the Greenwich Police Department, presently assigned to the Connecticut Financial Crimes Task Force. They will be discussing quite a few items. What is identity theft? What are the latest trends in identity theft in New Canaan, the do's and don'ts related to identity theft, fighting back against identity theft, and additional resources to keep us all informed. So now, please join me in welcoming New Canaan Chief of Police Leon Krolikowski.
Well, thanks for coming tonight. We appreciate your coming here and getting some good information that's going to hopefully prevent crime. That's what we're trying to do. Identity theft and related crimes are probably the biggest growing crimes in New Canaan and nationwide. Literally 2 weeks ago, we had a lady called, and you probably saw it in the paper. I try to put those alerts out a lot. And she was called, and the gentleman said that there was some kind of problem with her computer. She gave him remote access and her passwords, and all their files were stolen. And it's probable that was used or will be used for identity theft. And we've had instances of identity theft in New Canaan where people have been taken for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a real threat. And if you pay attention tonight, we have an expert here. Detective Solomon goes around the country literally and gives these presentations. So we're fortunate to have him here tonight with us. And he'll give you some real information. He'll give you some current trends, ways you can protect yourself. And probably the best piece of advice I can give you is be suspicious of everyone, literally. I'm not kidding. If you get a call on the telephone and something tells you it doesn't sound right, it isn't right. Call us up right away and we'll help you and we'll navigate through it. If it's a legitimate problem, we'll help you with it. If it's not, then we're going to tell you that as well. But don't hesitate to call us for any reason like that. Don't give in to these people. They're very cagey. They have information you wouldn't believe. You want to believe what they're saying over the telephone. You want to help them and or help a relative that they claim might be in trouble. but it's not true most of the time. And in fact, I live in New Canaan. I got a call a couple of months ago from a gentleman saying my computer had a virus or something, and he called the wrong guy because I just didn't believe it. So, so it's out there, and more than ever, they're after everybody, and they get your information. They're trying to steal your identity. They're trying to get at your financial information, and just be really cautious. Don't believe it. It's not true most of the time. And Detective Solomon will give you that. And Captain DeFederico, he was in the Detective Bureau for many years, and he investigated a lot of these crimes happening. And what's unfortunate is a lot of these incidents we don't have any authority over because some of them are happening overseas. For example, in Korea, we really don't have any jurisdiction there, and the FBI is just too busy with so many other things that lots of these people get away with what they're doing unless it's a significant crime, and there's thresholds for both us and for federal crimes. So lots of times they get away with these things, which is unfortunate. I think only 5% of the time they end up getting caught and arrested, which is unfortunate, and it's growing every single day. So it's something to be careful. You need to be careful about because it's probably the biggest threat and crime in New Canaan that's happening, and it's growing every single day. And I'll turn it over to Detective Solomon now. He's going to give a presentation, and pay careful attention, take notes, and at the end, there's going to be a test. Not really. At the end, we're going to steal everybody's identity, and we're going to see if you catch it.
All right, good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me here. And a little bit about myself real quick. I'm with the Greenwich Police Department where we have no crime, so that's why I've been sent over here to New Canaan. No, I'm sorry. I've been with the Greenwich Police Department 20 years now, 13 in the Detective Bureau, but the last 5 years I've had the unique opportunity of being assigned to the U.S. Secret Service on a federal task force that investigates financial crimes and identity theft. So for the past 5 years, I've actually reported to New Haven on a daily basis versus Greenwich. And I'm also the International Association of Financial Crime Investigators Connecticut chapter here, and that's a mix of law enforcement and private sector investigators that investigate financial crimes and identity theft. I'd like to tell you just briefly about the task force with the Secret Service. It started 5 years ago. We have members of federal, state, and local law enforcement part of that task force, and these are the current members that you see here. The task force has the authority to investigate anything financial and is criminal that either occurs in the state of Connecticut or has a nexus to the state of Connecticut. We have a heavy emphasis on asset forfeiture at the task force, and we have the ability to prosecute both on the state and federal level. The members like myself, we've actually been deputized as federal U.S. Marshals in order to make federal arrests as well. This is kind of a picture of what we're seeing here in Connecticut as well as across the United States. We're seeing huge amounts of credit card fraud, counterfeit checks, checks being stolen out of the mail and counterfeited or stolen checks and being issued to criminals. We're seeing false applications where they use your information to open up accounts, whether it's store accounts or credit card accounts or bank accounts. We're seeing skimming operations, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Hacking and network intrusions, where criminals are hacking not only into your personal computers, but they're hacking into stores and businesses, and they're capturing card data by those means. And we always have our dirty employees, embezzlers that take advantage of their employers and find an opportunity to steal from the company. And then wire, bank, and mail fraud, and also a thing called check kiting. Maybe a lot of you are not aware of that. But that's where individuals open up numerous bank accounts, get the checkbooks for those accounts. And even though there's no money in the accounts, they write checks out for $5,000 or $10,000, deposit it into another bank account, and then withdraw the funds before the bank realizes that there is no funds in that original account. So we've seen problems like that as well. What is identity theft? Can somebody give me a brief definition? What do you think identity theft is? Come on. You got it. Meat and potatoes. It doesn't have to be exactly like the statute. Someone pretending to be you, using your information. Absolutely. In the state of Connecticut, our statute has gone over some revisions over the years because the criminals have actually found loopholes in it. A number of years ago, it used to read that the person unlawfully obtained your personal identifying information and used it for some benefit. But the criminals were getting off on these charges because they said, well, Your Honor, I actually obtained it lawfully when I was working at the doctor's office, and then I stole the information and used it for gain. So our statute has changed over the years, but this is kind of our current statute right here. And it's basically that person obtains personal identifying information belonging to another and uses it for some criminal activity and gain, usually financial. What are they trying to steal? What type of things do you think they're trying to get from you? Social Security number. What else? Birth date, your name, driver's license, credit card numbers, debit card numbers. All these things are unique to you. They're like your fingerprint. Nobody else has the same credit card number as you. Nobody has the same Social Security number as you. So they're trying to get that information that makes you unique and individual. So here are some of the things that they're looking for. But would a normal person think that maybe your computer screen name and password, that is your personal identifying information? Nobody else has that same screen name and that password other than you. So that is part of your identity. Let's look at some statistics, and these are a little bit staggering as we go on here. But the most popular time, and this is just from a few years ago, but it's really a picture of today as well. Credit card fraud is the #1 category of identity theft. I know we're all aware of the Target breach recently, where around 90 million customers' accounts were obtained. That's why something like this is so popular, to get your credit card or your debit card account, because it can be very profitable. But if you look at some of these other statistics, you'll be surprised. One of the second biggest categories is phone and utility frauds. So the criminals are actually just using your information in order to pay for their phones, their electricity, their gas. Okay, those cases are relatively easy to solve because we have an opportunity to go knock on that door and figure out who's living there, and we could arrest them because they're using your information to pay for the utilities. Who's at risk? Who do you think? Everyone, absolutely. The one thing, if you came here tonight and said, oh, God, hopefully Detective Solomon is going to teach us how to protect our identity 100%, it's impossible. You could do everything right to protect your identity, lock it down, shred everything that you have, but your information has been collected since the day you were born, at hospitals, at doctors, at schools. So you could do everything right, but if your information is not secured by other people, you could still become a victim of identity theft. Let's look at some more statistics. In 2011, it increased 13% from the year before, with 11.6 million adults in the United States being victims. That doesn't even include juveniles that were victims of identity theft. Households that made more than $70,000 were twice as likely to become victims of identity theft for people whose salaries were under $50,000. Now, I know I'm safe because I get paid way under $50,000 at the Greenwich Police Department, so I shouldn't be a victim. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people that make more than $70,000 are twice as likely to become victims? The criminals do not want to steal from the poor. They want to steal from people that have money. So the more money you have, the more likely they're going to try and come after you. This is another staggering statistic. There's two ways basically to commit identity theft. When they get your information, there's only two things they could do with it. They could either attack accounts that you own that are yours, and that's what we call an account takeover, or they do what we call an account startup. And that's where they use your information to create new accounts that you had nothing to do with, and then they're defrauding the financial institution. Over the years, I've interviewed numerous victims of identity theft, and I find usually the people that had their own accounts attacked are passionate about it. They're upset about it. That was my account. That was my money. That was my credit card, they used. And boy, I've seen some victims actually be better investigators than me. They actually solved the case before they even came to law enforcement. But then I've seen some victims where they have this attitude that, well, you know what? It's not my account. I didn't open it. I have nothing to do with it. It's not my problem. Well, let's look at these two statistics here. It takes 58 hours for a victim on average to clear their name of an account that they actually own, that was theirs, that was attacked. But it takes 165 hours on average for that account that you had nothing to do with, that you never opened. So it is very time consuming. You know, the banks and the credit card companies have actually gotten much better on decreasing that time for you. A few years ago, those numbers would be around double that. It would take you to clear your good name as a victim. Let's look at this. Here's a great statistic when we talk about you could do everything right, but your information is exposed anyway. From 2005 to 2009, 500 million consumers had their financial data exposed as a result of corporate data breaches. We know in 2013, there's going to be 90 million more victims because of the Target breach. And that wasn't the only breach of the year. There's many others that go on that go fly under the radar because there wasn't that many accounts. This is a great statistic for law enforcement, and when I teach law enforcement about this, is that 71% of the fraud occurs within 1 week of your information being stolen. So if I'm a police officer or detective, you know, I want to know the week prior to that charge occurring on your bank account or your credit card, I want to know what happened. Did you get a suspicious phone call where you provided, you know, information, personal information? Did you respond to an email that asked you to type in personal information? Did you have people in your house that maybe had access to your personal information? 48% of the identity theft cases were discovered by the consumers themselves. This number was actually a lot higher a few years ago. Has anybody gotten a phone call from their bank or credit card company and just asking, hey, did you just make that purchase? Yep, okay. Why do you think you got that call? Why do you think? Okay. The reason that they've called you is because they have been taking a beating on these type of cases, fraud and identity theft, and they're taking huge losses every year. So they've created over the years programs to study you, to know your spending habits, where you shop, what days you like to shop, how much you typically spend at one store. And when something falls out of that pattern, they're reaching out to you so they can minimize the loss. So there's not 10 or 12 charges before they get a hold of you. So that's how big of a problem it is. This is probably the most staggering. Identity theft occurs once every 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds, somebody's identity is being stolen. And why is it the fastest growing crime? I think the chief alluded to this, and please don't boo me when you see this. But the average arrest rate nationwide is 5% of the cases reported to law enforcement. Now you're saying, well, why do you bring this Solomon up here? He's horrible. He's only 5% of the cases, you know? There's many reasons for that. I think the chief pointed out, too, is that many of these criminals never step foot on U.S. soil. They're committing these frauds from overseas in countries that we may not have a lot of cooperation with or an agreement with to prosecute. So that's one of the reasons. We'll look at some others as we go on as well. I could tell you in the state of Connecticut, we have a lot better success than that 5%. But, you know, let's look at New Canaan and Greenwich and other towns like this. You know, fortunately, we don't have a lot of violent crime going on. Maybe we don't have a lot of street drug activities. Maybe we don't have gang problems and violence. So the resources that the police department could afford to allocate to financial crimes is there. But if you're dealing with a city or a state that's dealing with lots of violent crimes, rapes, murders, robberies, these things are obviously a priority. You know, the personal safety of our citizens is the most important. So some of those departments may not have the same resources to allocate to financial crimes. Another reason it's so easy is I could commit identity theft in my pajamas, lying in my bed with a laptop and a cell phone, and I could make $50,000 or $100,000 a day without leaving my bedroom. It's what I like to call the lazy man's crime. You know, and you know, who do you think some of our modern day suspects are today? Give me, what type of crime groups do you think are involved in identity theft? Teenagers? The mafia? Anybody else? I think my wife is, because my bank account's always empty, but you'll be shocked at this. And this is the trend that we're seeing here in the United States, okay? We're seeing organized groups like the Crips, the Bloods, Latin Kings, Hell's Angels, computer hackers, organized foreign criminal groups. You know, has anybody heard of Albert Gonzalez at all? Albert Gonzalez was probably one of the better hackers in U.S. history. And he was arrested federally, went to prison, and the judge ordered him, they said, Mr. Gonzalez, when you do get out of prison, you are going to train federal law enforcement on how to catch hackers. So he went to prison for a number of years and got out, and they set him up in an office in a federal building, and he started training law enforcement. And it was great, you know, but the problem is he couldn't stop hacking. So while he was training, he went back to hacking again. So he got another 20 years in prison. But this type of person, you will not reform. It's not about money to him. You know, he didn't do it for the money. He did it for the challenge of hacking into something that somebody said you can't get into. You know, if our Defense Department computers can be hacked into, if our U.S. power grids can be hacked into, our personal computers in our businesses can be hacked into as well. Where does this information go? If somebody gets your information, where do you think it goes? Sometimes the criminals steal it themselves and use it themselves. But let's take Target or another data breach. Where do you think that data goes? Any ideas? It gets sold on the internet. These are what we call carding websites. I call it the underground of the eBay. But this was actually from an arrest in Greenwich around 7-8 years ago. The subject was arrested. He was purchasing gift cards at Stop and Shop, and luckily he just happened to be in a stolen vehicle at the time when he was doing that, and the police were called. And I came in to work that day. I interviewed him and kind of got a little rapport go with him, and he said, Mark, he said, listen, I'm wanted in like 5 or 6 different states. I've been doing this for 6 years straight. He goes, I'm tired of it. He goes, I'm going to show you something. He goes, this is where I get all my information. And he's like, can I borrow your computer? And I'm like, no, use my partner's, not mine. So I used my partner's computer, and he pulled me onto this website. It was called www.carter.su. And it was the eBay for criminals. Here's a little blow up, but you can see Cell CC, which is credit cards with plus CVV. That is the magnetic strip data. So they had posts for that. They had cash out services. Dumps only would just be credit card numbers without the magnetic strip data. You have plastic documents, any ID, any scans, any holograms, any skimmers, any labels that you want for sale. And there were thousands of posts on this one website, thousands, in all different languages. And they had administrators for the website, so if they thought you were a police officer, you'd get banned, you know, and if you were what they called a ripper is a person that would offer to sell you this stuff and then never delivered it. So you get banned from this website, and you would get rated. You got rated like eBay. You know, they're like 97% success rate. You know, this guy, Johnny Jones, gave me very authentic-looking counterfeit credit cards. I recommend him to you, you know, in the future. And it was insane. But there's hundreds of these websites out there. And you're saying, well, what's law enforcement doing about that? Where do you think these websites are based out of? Out of countries, you know, and they do, some countries do shut them down, and 5 minutes later it's in another country. And they shut it down there, and it's 5 minutes later it's in another country. But there's hundreds of these websites, so that's where a lot of this data goes. How do they get your information? Any ideas? We know hacking, we talked about that with Target. What else? Stealing mail, absolutely. Just had a case 2 weeks ago in Greenwich. We arrested 5 individuals that were stealing mail throughout Fairfield County for the past 6 months. They're going to be charged federally, hopefully. But yeah, stealing mail. What else? Garbage, yes, absolutely. Going through your garbage. Let's look at some other ways. Dumpster diving, that's exactly what it is, folks, going through your garbage. But it may not be just your personal garbage. They may be targeting businesses, hospitals, banks, where there may be large amounts of data not being shredded. We have mail diversion and theft. We have burglary and larcenies. You know, my wife, I love her. I think she needs to come to my class one of these days. She, you know, she keeps resisting. But I'll go to the food store every once in a while with her, and we're going shopping, and all of a sudden she gets over to the produce, and she leaves her cart over there, and her purse is sitting right in the top thing, and it's unzipped, and the wallet's right on top. You know, we have people going into stores just looking to steal your purse out of the basket. We had a group here that targeted New Canaan. The captain worked a long time on this case where we had an organized group that was going all around the country, flying around the country. And they would sit up in gym parking lots or daycare centers or schools waiting for a woman to get out of her car and walk into the building without her purse. They'd go immediately to the car, smash the window, grab the woman's purse, the checkbook, and her ID, and they drove right to her bank, the nearest bank that she had an account with, and they would impersonate her either at the teller line or at the drive-through using her checkbook and her debit card and her driver's license. This group was 4 individuals. They did $460,000 worth of successful banking transactions and over 80 burglaries in 16 states. Luckily, the captain and a bunch of the other detectives around the state were able to pull our resources together, identify the group, and charge them federally. The insider, people, sometimes, whether it's somebody close to us, maybe we have a family member that has a substance abuse problem and is desperate, so they steal your information. Maybe it's a person that is associated with an organization or a business or a doctor's office or dentist office that has your personal information at their fingertips and they're able to access. We have telemarketing scams. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Computer hacking, we've discussed that. Internet sharing, just like that website you saw. Skimming, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Phishing, smishing, and vishing. I didn't drink tonight, I swear, those are real words. Wireless hacking. How many people have wireless internet at home, right? It's great, it's wonderful. How many people have it secured with a password? How many people haven't changed the password probably since when they first set it up, right? Okay. So if they have the ability to hack into things, they may have your password. We'll find criminal groups that will actually drive around neighborhoods, okay, looking for unsecured wireless network, and they'll do the transaction with a stolen credit card off your Wi-Fi. And all of a sudden, the police gets the report, and we search the IP address, and we say, uh-oh, it's Mrs. Smith in New Canaan. She's the criminal. No, she's not. She just happened to have her internet unsecured, where somebody could log on to it. And then the other interesting, have anyone ever heard of ID give-ups? This is where the victim is really not a victim at all. So I approached the chief here. I said, Chief, give me your credit cards, your debit cards, your social security number, and I'm going to attack your accounts. I'm going to open up new accounts with your information. Wait 30 days to report it to law enforcement. Now, I'm the person on video doing all this stuff. So the chief waits 30 days. He goes to the police, makes a report. He fills out an affidavit of fraud with the banks and the credit card companies. And guess what they do? They give him all his money back. And then I split the proceeds with him. So sometimes your victim is not even a victim. So, and website spoofing. You get an email, maybe you're looking to buy a car, and you get this email, got this beautiful 2013 Mercedes, it's worth $70,000, this person's selling it for $30,000, and all of a sudden, you see the logos for maybe the car business online, and everything matches, and then you wire off the money for the car, and the car never comes. And then you call, a cartrader.com or the website and say, hey, where's my car? What are you talking about? You weren't on our website. So they just changed maybe one letter of the address of the web address, and they've created a totally fictitious website. All right, mail theft. What is wrong with this picture? If I'm a criminal, that's like a red flashing light saying mail, 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 right? All right. What's better about this mailbox? The flag's down, and you have a lock. But can I break into that lock, you think, pretty easy? I bet you I could get in there in around 5 seconds flat. Is there a benefit to that? There is a benefit to that. You know why? Because if I put my mail out there in the first mailbox, and I come home at the end of the day, I'm never going to know somebody stole my mail. But if I put it in that second mailbox, and I come home and the door's ripped off or the lock's punched out, I know what mail I put in there that morning. I could contact the bank and shut those checks down quickly. So there is a benefit. Now, is this the best option? Absolutely. Nobody's stealing my mail. Yeah, that's my house, actually. Yep. So, All right, phishing, smishing, and vishing. Phishing is actually what it sounds like. People are phishing for your information, and it's done over the internet through emails. You click on an email, and you think it's from an institution or a business that you deal with. Maybe it could be eBay or a bank or a credit card company. And they say, listen, there's a problem. We need to update your information, or there's been an attack on your account. We're shutting it down. We need you to click on this link. And you click on this link, and they're asking you for your personal information. You know, that's what we call phishing. Vishing is just done by phone calls, whether it's automated phone calls or somebody calling you up, okay, telling you the same scam that, hey, there's a problem with your account. We need to verify it. You know, and smishing is done by text messages. You know, for us techies that have, you know, able to text. But here's an example right here. It was an email that somebody opened up, and boom, there's the eBay, you know, logo. It is the eBay logo. And he even warns you, says, this message may not be from who it claims to be. Beware of any links or providing any personal information. But then you go and read it, and then they're telling you they got to update some billing information. You click on it, and they're asking you to put your name, your social security number, your date of birth, your credit card number, and bam, you've been victimized. Here's another one from People's Bank. But, you know, the good thing is a lot of these are being done by foreign criminal groups, and they haven't mastered the English language yet. So you see here, like, due to recently fraud attempts and stuff like that. But, you know, they're getting better at it. So it could be very authentic looking as well. Here's a smishing scam. You won the $1,000 Walmart gift card. I got one of those on my police phone, you know. I love it. But they could also say something like this, you know, your H&R Block customer account has been blocked. So you got to call that number in order to unblock it. So you call them, and then you're providing personal information, the card number, the expiration date, your PIN number. So these are some of the things that, and we're going to talk about how to have a defense against those things in a little bit. Skimming, does anybody know what skimming is? Not really. You know, there are what we call double charges, but skimming has to do with stealing that magnetic strip data. You know, your cards have information on the front of a card, but what the criminals want is that magnetic stripe. That contains hidden data in there that makes that card authentic, and that's what they want to steal. So it may go something like this. You go maybe to a restaurant, a waiter waits on you, you go pay the bill, you give him or her the card, and they walk away with your card. But in their pocket or in their, what's that thing you wear there? Apron, yes. They have a little handheld device. It could be as small as this or even smaller. It's battery operated. Okay, so when I will go around the corner, I take your card and I swipe it through this device. One swipe, half a second, thank you. It takes a half a second, and I just stole everything that I need to make a counterfeit card. It won't show up on your statement. It doesn't connect to the bank, so you see an extra swipe at the restaurant, and they hand you your card back, and you go off on your merry way. But 2 weeks later, you get notified by your bank or credit card company your card has been used somewhere else and swiped. So these are what these devices look like, and these are older devices. They actually come much smaller now, so you could buy these on the internet lawfully. And what they do is they'll pay somebody $20 a card, and they'll say, go in and work at this place for a month, swipe every card that you can, and we'll pay you $20 for every card at the end of the week, and we'll give you a new device the next week. But then what they'll do is they'll take that magnetic strip data, they'll take it off the device, they'll put it onto a computer, and then what they do is they transfer it with another device called a re-encoding device, and they take that strip and they place it onto another card with a magnetic strip. Now, it could be any type of card with a magnetic strip. So what do you think the most popular way for me to create a card that looks real and put your card data on it? Now, I can make up a card, and I can put the Chase logo and emboss numbers and emboss names on the front of it. But what do you think the easiest way for me to take that data and put it onto something else that a person at the Stop and Shop or at a Best Buy will take and use? Well, if you go through those self-serve lines, absolutely, nobody's checking your card at all. But if I have to hand it over, what's a type of card that wouldn't raise any suspicion? A gift card. So we have criminals that go and steal 40 or 50 gift cards off the rack, and they're not activated. And people are like, oh, they're not very smart. They're not even activated. No, they want that plastic because it's authentic. It's a real piece of plastic that looks like a gift card. But what they'll do is they'll put your American Express card or your bank debit card on the mag stripe of the card. All right, we'll talk about foreign lottery scams, right? We get the phone call, you're all excited, you know, you got the one, you won $50 million, you're going to take care of the family, the grandkids, but there's a problem. They want you to send a little bit of a processing fee, a customs fees. Okay, it's only $20,000 or $30,000, but you're gonna get $50 million, you know. But here's the rule, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't buy a ticket, you were never in the lottery. You know, we laugh, but I've seen numerous cases where somebody has worked their entire life, put their savings away, not for themselves. A lot of times it's for their children and their grandchildren, and within a matter of moments, all that money is wired and gone, never to be returned. Once that money gets wired over, it's gone. Somebody's there to pick it up on the other end. Recently, there was somebody in Fairfield County that had over $100,000 of their own money wired on a foreign lottery scam. So if you get these calls, folks, you get an email, it's not true. You know, if you didn't buy a winning ticket somewhere and, you know, check it out yourself, you didn't win the lottery. Let's talk about some other scams and flim-flams here. How they try and get your money and information. All right, this is very popular. Like the chief and the captain were saying, this is going through Connecticut and so many states right now, and it's horrible because it pulls on your heartstrings. You know, especially, you know, they're targeting people that are seniors. Okay, and I'm getting there very quickly. You know, I'm getting up to that senior age. So, but this is horrible, and it will start off like this. The phone will ring. You'll pick it up. And there'll be a male or female voice on the other end, and they'll say, Grandma, Grandpa, you know, and you go, Johnny or Susie? Yes, it's me, it's Johnny, or it's me, Susie. You know, I just got arrested. I was driving drunk, and I got arrested, and I'm in jail, and it could be in a foreign country, it could be in another state, okay, or there could be a different variation that, you know, I'm in the hospital, you know, I'm hurt very bad. Okay, the next step of it is they're going to go and they're going to probably tell you this. They're going to say, please don't tell mom and dad, especially if they got arrested. You know, and your grandma, your grandpa, you know, Johnny's a good kid or Susie's a good girl, but, you know, all right, this is one slip up. I won't let mom and dad know. Okay, now they got you. They're reeling you in. Now for authentic persons, they'll have a police officer get on the phone. Hi, this is Detective so-and-so. This is Trooper so-and-so. Yes, you know, Johnny's been arrested. His bond is $20,000, but you could wire it, and then he'll be released from prison. So they go wire the money. Well, guess what happens next? Now all of a sudden you get a call from the defense attorney, and he said, "Listen, I'm the attorney representing your son, your grandson, your granddaughter. In order to represent him in court, I'm going to need another $10,000." So you do that. The phone call rings the next morning. It's Detective so-and-so or Officer so-and-so, and they said, listen, the person that your grandson or granddaughter hit just died in the hospital. So now your grandson, your granddaughter is being charged with murder or manslaughter, and now the bond is $50,000. This is happening. This is happening out there where people fall for it. There's a different variation of this now, which is even more horrible than this. It's the kidnapping. Distress call. So now the young boy, the young girl is on the phone, they're screaming, whatever, you know, they get enough information you to say Johnny or Susie, and then somebody rips the phone away and they say, listen, we have your grandson, we have your granddaughter, we're going to kill them unless you wire us $50,000. You know? My wife fell victim to this a few months ago. She thought I had been kidnapped. And she paid the $50,000, but she told the kidnappers to make sure they finished the job. I mean, but just kidding, just kidding. You know, she was very disappointed when I showed up at home that night. She thought I was a goner. But in all seriousness, like I said, we don't know if these calls are legitimate or not, okay? Could there very rarely be an opportunity where somebody's kidnapped or family members in distress? Absolutely. But here's how we want to approach it. This is the best step. Never volunteer, you know, the grandson or granddaughter's name, okay? If they've been arrested by a law enforcement agency, they're going to allow that person to make a phone call and talk, okay? Test them. Okay? Oh, if this is my granddaughter, what are your parents' first names? Where did you go to high school? Okay? Get information from the caller. Never provide information to them. What police department are you at? Okay? What hospital are you at? Okay? Hang up the phone, get as much information, hang it up, verify. Okay? Don't call the number that they gave you or that's on your caller ID. Look up, research the hospital, the police department, and call them back and verify that information. Okay? If you get a kidnap thing, obviously we want you calling the police either way, whether it's a scam or not, because in a small incident, this could be true. Okay, so we want to take that very seriously. Call the police department right away. If you get scammed in the other way, call the police department. Let them know that this stuff is going on in our town so we can aware other people that, that this is going on. All right, let's talk about, I think we covered all this. Again, don't give information out. Get information from them. Let's talk about telemarketing scams. I will tell you this, and as the chief said, be a little paranoid or suspicious. I like to say paranoid because I'm paranoid, but be suspicious of any incoming phone call, okay? I could buy a phone right now, and I could have it programmed to have you see any name or any phone number on your caller ID screen. I could have it programmed to say Chase Bank, New Canaan Police Department. Okay, I could program it to say anything I want, okay? So if, I don't want you to be paranoid, but just really, if there's one thing you get out of this is never trust an incoming phone call, okay? Verify independently. So if your bank may be trying to reach out to you, your credit card company, okay? You could be nice to them, you don't have to be mean to them because it could be a legitimate call, but if they call you and start asking you for personal information, okay, that's a red flag right there, stop. They have your information in front of you. They're calling you. So they shouldn't need to verify your information. Okay? Here's what you do. You get that incoming call, find out what organization is, or what credit card, or what bank, okay? Say, I will call you back. Hang up the phone. Don't call the number on the screen. Go to your statement, go to the back of your debit card or credit card, and contact them. Now, you're going to have to provide personal information to them to verify who you are, but I'd rather do that knowing I'm talking to that institution. Okay, so never trust an incoming phone call or an email as well. If it says it's from your bank in an email and there's a problem, don't respond to it. Go to your local branch. Call your local branch. Call the number on your statement and say, hey, I just got this email. It's asking for this information. Utility fraud scams, this is another thing that's popular out there. And the scam goes like this. You get a call, on your screen it says it's your electric company or gas company, and you are 4 months overdue. You haven't paid. And you're like, no, I have. Well, no, you haven't. We haven't received your payment, and we're shutting off your utilities today. So you're like, oh, my God, it's 28 degrees outside. Now I don't want the heat turned off. So they'll tell you, well, listen, the only way we could turn this back on without, shutting it off and sending somebody out there next week is go down to the CVS, buy a green dot card or a loadable debit card and put $1,000 on it or $600. Call us back and then give us the number over the phone. Okay, so that's another scam that's out there to be aware of. Your utilities are going to give you plenty of notice, trust me, by mail, by phone, and they're not going to be threatening to shut you off that day. But be aware that this is out there. ATM skimming. All right, we talked about skimming with credit cards, maybe at a restaurant. Has anybody, a couple years ago, we had an ATM skimming incident right here in New Canaan. Police department did a phenomenal job. They detected, they were notified that subjects were putting devices on an ATM machine over a few weekends. And we worked together, the task force and Secret Service. We set up a surveillance on the branch, and on the third weekend, we apprehended the suspects. But this is the same concept. They want that magnetic strip data, but they want one other piece of information. What do you think they want? They want your PIN number. Your PIN number is not included on that magnetic stripe. It's only up here. So they need to get that. So what they do is they use a second device, and we'll look at these devices here, is they'll use a skimming device over here to the left, and they'll attach it on the card slot of the ATM machine, and it looks like it's part of the ATM. the average customer is not going to know. So, and you'll be able to use that machine. Your card will go in. You could do your transactions. But when you slide that card through the mouth of the ATM, it's actually capturing that magnetic strip data. The second part, what they need is what we call a pin capturing device. And that's basically a micro video recorder that they build into some piece of plastic or something that looks like it's part of the ATM machine or its surroundings. But there's a little pinhole in that device, and there's a camera pointed down towards the pin pad, and it's actually recording video of you punching in your pin number. So skimmers, they'll stay up for a period of time. Most of the time they'll be attached with either super glue, but more often they're using double-sided tape so they could take it on and off easily. Okay, and it'll stay on the machine for a period of time, and then they'll remove both of these devices. And they come in all shapes and sizes, and they know every ATM that's out there and the models and what foreign device will actually blend into the machine. These pictures here are all devices, all skimming devices. Here's a device. This was we seized and made an arrest in Wallingford, Connecticut a couple of years ago. So that looks pretty authentic, right? That looks like your typical ATM machine, the card slot. But here's the device partially removed from the ATM. So that piece was not real at all. The pin capturing devices, again, using micro video recorders, cameras, and just recording video. And every shape and size and color they've created to put on different ATM machines. This is a drive-up ATM in, I believe it was in Brantford. This is in Norwalk, a piece of plastic that has a camera built into it, and then a pamphlet device over there they attach to the side of the ATM. And pretty much anything you could put on or around an ATM, they've actually converted to little cameras. So these are those mirrors, on the side of the ATM, so if somebody's coming up, sneaking up behind you. And then this is a light fixture. They actually replaced and put a counterfeit light fixture in there with a camera. Does anybody see the camera here? What do you think? Can you pick it out? Upper right? So this whole piece was placed over the light fixture, and there's the micro video camera there. So how, and I'm going to tell you one other thing, we kind of made this short, but where else do you have to use your card at the ATM machine? Before you get to the actual ATM, where do you usually have to use your card? Open the doors. So now they're attaching devices on the doors, so when you swipe, okay, they're capturing the card data there, and then they're still putting a camera on the ATM machine to get your PIN number. So you guys are the detectives now. You're fully informed about ID theft. How do we defeat ATM skimming? Oh, I got a volunteer right in the front. How do we defeat it? All right, so now she's never, ever been to one of my presentations before, correct? Okay. Did you hear what she said? All right, she said, use a different card to open the door. Okay, most of those door devices will open up with anything with a magnetic strip, from your Costco card. Okay, some of them require an authentic card, so here's what you do. If you have an Amex card or a Discover card or a credit card, open that with the door, but then use your debit card at the ATM machine. What's the second piece that you should be doing? So use a different card to open the door, and then what's the second thing? Cover your PIN. Yes, and some of these cameras are really close to the PIN, so I mean, if you do this, it's going to capture you. It's going to capture your PIN number. Okay, I go to an ATM machine now, and I'm like this. I'm like, I'm like trying to feel the braille. Is that too, okay? But in all seriousness, this is what I do. I know the ladies have a large, usually a wallet, right? So I do this. I cover it over like this. Punch in my number. Okay. Now I don't want you to scare you. We've only had one incident in New Canaan. But, and it's not like every ATM has a, device on it. But if you have good practices every time, that one time you may come across a machine with the device on it, and they're not going to get your PIN number. And that's what they want more than anything. These groups are about cash. If they don't get your PIN number, they usually don't mess with your card at all. So if you cover your PIN, what else can you do before you use the ATM machine? Go in the bag. Yep, you can do that. But it's 7 o'clock at night, the bank's closed, and I really need some cash. Use the ATM, but inspect it first. Take a look at it. There's nothing wrong with you taking that card slot and giving it a little tug. Now, don't use a crowbar, because the chief's not going to be very happy with me when the bank calls him in the morning and says, you know, Mrs. So-and-so was at Mark Solomon's class and she pried off the, but you know, these machines are not made to fall off in your hand, okay? Look around the card slot. Do you see glue? You know, if somebody's gluing it on, you may see some glue. You may see pry marks around the card slot. You know, these are things that just be aware of. You know, just be aware before you use the ATM machine. So I think we covered that. Inspect the machine. Don't use a crowbar. Open the door with a different card and cover your PIN.
But if you use, let's say, a different card,
Yep.
wouldn't that be captured too?
Well, they are. So let's say you use your Discover card. That's all you have on you. You use your Discover card, but I use my MasterCard debit card at the ATM machine. So what they capture at the door, they're going to try and match up with your PIN number to your debit card, and it's not going to work. So, you know, obviously if you could use, you could even carry an expired gift card, you know, like a Dunkin' Donuts card. You could put that in your wallet and, you know, use that to open the door. Most of them will open with pretty much any magnetic stripe. But if you run into a device that the Dunkin' Donut card doesn't work, then use your Discover or Amex, you know.
Mark,
Yes.
if you use your one credit card and the other, just make sure it's not the same PIN number because
Good point. Thank you. So Captain's thinking, all right. I've been teaching this for a while, and I always learn something new every time I do this. So you're right. If you have the same PIN number for everything, that's not going to be a good thing. So good point. Excellent. All right, so we talked about the two ways to commit identity theft, so we'll skip through that. What's it feel like to be identity theft victim? Let's see here. Horrible, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, the pool will be closed for 5 minutes. Exit the pool. Everyone out. I have the small bathroom break I have to do. Pool open in 5 minutes. Thank you.
I know the chief's looking at me now because we're not bringing Solomon back anymore. That's it. He's done. So I show that in part jest, but I show that to all law enforcement. I train that. What happened there? What did the lifeguard do? He got every single person to get out of the pool. Okay? I bring this up is because these criminals are so intelligent. They are so persistent. They are so refined. So when you get that phone call, you get that email, it is believable. You know, my very first time I taught identity theft was for my department. It was review training. You know, I was all excited, and I'm teaching this part about the phishing scams. And during the break, my detective sergeant came up to me. He goes, Mark, he goes, I just got one of those emails yesterday, and I filled everything out. You know? So even police officers can be victims. I've been victimized. My credit card account has been compromised 3 times in 2 years. Now you're saying, oh, God, why did we really bring Mark here? He can't even protect himself, you know? But I used my card at businesses where somebody had hacked into their system. And there's no way for me to walk into a place and know that. So like I said, anybody could be a victim. And also, you know, like I said, some victims are very embarrassed, you know, after the fact that they just lost a lot of money. They gave away their personal information. And, you know, and everybody, you know, you feel like everybody's judging you, like, oh, how could you fall for that? You know, even a police officer could fall for a scam, you know. So I bring that up. How can I protect it completely? What do you think? What's the answer? You can't. I'm sorry. You can't. But what we could do is we could try and minimize our exposure to becoming a victim. And this is the last portion, and then I will be quiet. I promise it. I know we've been talking a lot. Out on the back table, I brought a whole bunch of information about protecting your identity, what to do if you're a victim. Please, you know, take that home with you. It's free. There are some great resources and information in there. If there's one website, if you're like fanatical about identity theft like I am and obsessed, you know, you could check out the Federal Trade Commission's website, www.ftc.gov. And there's a section on identity theft, and all that material is there, additional material on scams and frauds. But we're going to give you a little quick crash course on this. What you want to do is deter, detect, and defend. You want to deter identity thieves by safeguarding your information as much as possible. 2, you want to detect suspicious activity by routinely monitoring your accounts, okay, and statements. And 3, defend against identity theft as soon as you suspect the problem. So these are the 3 major steps that the Federal Trade Commission recommends. Deter. How many people have shredders at home? Everybody in this room should have their hands up. If you don't have a shredder, get one. You know, folks, and like I said, there are criminals going through your garbage. You know, so if you have statements and information with your date of birth, account numbers, social security numbers, it takes a matter of seconds to just send it through a shredder and then throw it in your garbage. At your businesses, you should have them. Protect your social security number. And I always get, well, how can I? Because you don't carry it. But what do most, you know, do? Medicare, right? It's right on. You know, one thing I have to complain about the government is they haven't figured out a way to issue a card without your social security number on it. But how many people carry their actual social security card on them? No? Nobody? Nobody has their card. All right, that's good. Medicare, other than your Medicare, yeah. You know, but there's places and times you go. There's sometimes I know with doctors and hospitals that you're going to have to provide that card. But you know what? If you're filling out this or that, you know, question them. Why do I got to give you my social security number? Oftentimes it's not required. Okay? So, you know, challenge them. Say, why do I need to give you my social security number? What happens if I don't give it to you? You know? Too often times it's just a standardized question on a form, and they don't need that information. Does anybody forget their PIN numbers? Do it? Be honest, do it. You see, I usually never have any money in my account, so I don't have any money, so you know, I usually don't have to use my PIN number, so I always forget it. But here's what you do. Okay, instead of carrying that envelope, you know, where it gave you the 4-digit PIN number and putting that in your wallet or your purse, here's what I do. I write in my wallet, I have a piece of paper in there, it says MOM 203-888-1217, right? That's my PIN number, 1217. Nobody's ever going to figure that out unless you just sat in my class. But so if my card gets compromised, I'll be interviewing all of you. But you know, if my wallet gets stolen, nobody's going to think that's my PIN number. So disguise it. Don't carry that piece of paper that says this is your PIN number, you know, for your Bank of America account. That's in the wallet, you know, in the slot next to this piece of paper. We talked about unsolicited emails. You know, has anybody seen an email where it says, hey there, or hi, right? And then all of a sudden you open it and there's just a link or maybe an attachment. They're trying to install a virus on your computer. So be aware of that. We're almost done. How many people update their virus protection once a week? Once a week? No? How many people? All right. I will tell you this. You should be updating your virus protection every single day. You could set it for 3 o'clock in the morning while you're sleeping, okay, and it'll run a self-check. Why do we have updates for viruses? Why do you think? Because the criminal has figured out a way to circumvent the current level of protection. So it is a catch-up game sometimes. So update that every single day. Internet purchases. Here's what I will tell you to do. Devote 1 credit card for internet purchases only. Do not use the mother account. My mother account, I have around $500 in there. That's what kind of my life savings. But don't use your bank account that has $100,000 in it and use that for online purchases. Devote 1 credit card, maybe put a $3,000 or $5,000 limit depending on how much you shop, and use that card only for internet purchases. Now, if that card gets compromised, what's that tell you? If that card, your internet card, gets compromised, what's it tell you? Well, one of two things. Either your computer has a problem or where you sent that data off to has a problem. Okay? But at least you're limiting the loss to that card, $3,000 to $5,000 versus, you know, using an Amex Black card that has no limit. You know, so stay away from using those big accounts for internet. You could do a $50 limit. Oh. No. You could buy some pretty expensive things on the internet. So it depends how your card is set up. But But definitely, I wouldn't want somebody doing that. One last, people will hack into your email accounts. Has anybody had that happen? Wow, a lot. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick tip. We had a case in Greenwich. A woman got her email hacked into. They read her email and saw that she asked her financial advisor to wire some money to her daughter. They took over her email account, sent another email to the financial advisor, and they said, hey, thank you for sending that money to my daughter. I'm doing a large business transaction. Please wire $120,000 to this bank account. They did. The next day, send another $80,000 to that account. They did. Over $200,000 that was sent from that financial advisor because of that email. Okay? Here's a quick tip. If they hack into your email, I want you to go home and create an account tonight in your contacts of AAA at AAA. That email does not exist. It's not real. There's no domain name for at AAA. But if you save that in your contacts, if somebody hacks into your email and sends out a mass email to your contacts, okay, because this is another thing they'll do is they'll actually take your computer over, virus it, and then they'll send it out to all your contacts so you spread the virus. But what's going to happen when they send out an email to that AAA at AAA? It's going to come back to you and it's going to say undeliverable. If you get that email in your inbox, you know you got a problem with your computer. All right. Annual credit reports is information on how to get it. You could get a free one at annualcreditreport.com. You could also get it through the 3 major credit bureaus. The phone numbers are also listed in those handouts: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. Final thing, if you become a victim, what do you want to do? Call the police, call the chief's office directly. No, I have his cell phone number. I'll give it out to you after. No, I'm kidding. Here's what you want to do. First, shut down that account down, whatever account is affected, whether it's the account that you own, okay, get it shut down right away so they can't get more fraud on it. If it's an account that you don't own, try and reach out to that organization, that institution, and say, hey, listen, that is not my account. They're using my information. I'm letting you know, okay? That's all you need to do there. 2, report it to the 3 major credit bureaus. Make a file report. They could put a fraud alert on your information. You could also do what they call a 7-year credit freeze as well as an option, and that'll be explained in the pamphlets behind you. 3, report it to law enforcement. Where do you report it? Quick scenario. I live in Greenwich. The fraud occurred in Bridgeport. Do I go to Greenwich or Bridgeport to report it? Greenwich. You go to the town that you reside in. Okay? So by statute, by a victim, you are allowed to go to the police department that you reside in. Even if the charges occurred in another town, you can report it there and get a case number that you could use. It may not be investigated by the town. It may be investigated by Bridgeport, or if it occurred in another state, but you have the right to actually report it. It's not fair for you to have to drive to Bridgeport or New York or Florida. I'm hoping somebody steals my identity in Hawaii because I'm going to try and go there if I can. But you get to report it in the town that you reside in. Federal Trade website, like I said, that's all in the information back there. Great resources. And with that, I will stop talking.
Anybody have any questions?
Do you recommend LifeLock and other services like that?
Because we're part of law enforcement, I cannot make a recommendation as to a particular product. My personal opinion is this. The more armor that you have, the safer you're probably going to be. Do your research, see what they offer. Some of them offer different things. Also, it's a cost factor. If it's something that you could afford and you're comfortable with it, that's fine. I will tell you this, I have not found a product that will prevent identity theft 100%. Case in example is if I go use a card at an ATM machine that has a skimming device on it, that product is not going to prevent it. It may minimize the loss, they may alert you quicker, but it's not going to prevent you from being a victim 100%. Yes. Okay. My apologies. Did everybody get that? Did everybody hear that question? I just gave the answer, so now we'll go backwards. The question was, some of these groups like LifeLock and other identity theft protection where they offer protection for a service or a price, she asked me if I recommended that. So hopefully that answer makes sense. And any other questions?
Should you ever allow a remote control of your computer to be given to a service that's supposedly trying to fix a problem that you have?
Absolutely not. Great question. And I know the chief, somebody was trying to scam you, and I got the call from the World Wide Web too at my house, and they said that my computer was sending out spam information, and that they wanted me to go to a website and they would show me how my computer's sending out spam. Absolutely not. Do not go to a website. If you're unsolicited, somebody's telling you to go to a website, don't do it. And don't click on any links, any pictures. They can install a virus in a picture or a background of a picture. So if you click on a picture on a website, you're thinking you're just clicking on a picture. You're actually installing a virus onto your computer. So definitely don't go to untrusted websites, or especially if you're directed to that website.
Well, you answered it partially.
Okay.
I sought, a remedy on a computer problem that I was having.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to an internet provider. That internet provider said, "Give me remote control of your computer so I can check some of the settings."
Yeah.
And I thought I was not comfortable with that.
No, they should be able to correct the problem without remotely taking over your computer. So I'd be very suspect of that. It may have been innocent, but you're giving somebody full access to your computer. So. Optima Online. So the question was a Cablevision and them accessing your information. Like I said, I mean, if they can remotely access it without you providing information, and they're going to fix the problem, I say. But if they're asking you for passwords or something like that, okay, right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you want the problem correct, I don't see a serious problem with that. There was a 60 Minutes show very recently, a few weeks ago, and it really shows how you're not alone on the internet anymore, how many groups and organizations are watching your every click. It's a great show. If you get a chance, watch that. But, yeah, unfortunately, nowadays, you're not on the internet by yourself anymore, so be aware of that.
What do you do
if your computer's been infected, what I recommend is to do a full scan of the computer. What you need to make sure is that your computer virus definitions and you got the latest version of the virus update, okay? And run that, see if it detects it. Okay, if not, you may need to bring that computer to a specialist to go further. Some of these viruses are very sophisticated, and they are, you cannot detect them with the normal virus protection.
Just one thing with that, something that you should do on a regular basis is back up your computer, the information, because really the only true way to get rid of a virus is to completely wipe your system and rebuild it. So if you back up your information on a regular basis, then you'll have a backup. You can just go in, you can do a system, you can reinstall the system. A lot of these virus companies, a lot of these companies that sell the software claim that they can just remove the virus. It's nearly impossible. Mm-hmm. So another best practice is to do a backup of a good copy of your computer on a weekly or a monthly basis. Keep that somewhere that you can just reinstall, so you can just totally wipe out your system and then reinstall a good copy of your system and all your information and all your files. That's the best way to do it if you do have a virus.
What about purchasing insurance that you hear on the TV to protect yourself?
Like identity theft programs or stuff like that? Yeah, that would be very similar to the other answers that, my personal opinion is the more protection you have, the better. Will it protect you 100%? No. So it definitely comes down to a cost and service issue, what they offer you and how much it's going to cost you. If that's something that it's affordable and you want, if you're not going to get it, then just make sure you're on top of your statements and your bills. You're doing credit checks on yourself to make sure that there's nothing suspicious on your credit report. We're good? Yes, ma'am.
I get a different credit report every 4 months.
Yeah, you could get them.
They only allow you one per year per credit company, so that's the way I do it.
Right. You could get checked 4 times a year for free. So like I said, if you do that, you're in pretty good shape. You know, on that, what the captain said too, let me stress something too, that real quick, there's a thing called ransomware that is going out, okay? And it's where they're actually infecting your computer and basically freezing it, locking it down airtight, and then they send you a message and you cannot access anything in your computer anymore. And they send you a message and they say, listen, you have to send us $3,000 and we'll unlock your computer. Well, folks, if you don't send the $3,000, you could basically take your computer and throw it in the garbage. So it's ransomware, but that's the importance about backing up your computer before there's a problem. You know, because if you get that type of virus, that ransomware, that computer is basically, it is metal and plastic, and you won't be able to use it again.
And one other quick thing with your computer is run the updates on it. Run your security updates on your computer frequently. As much as you do your virus protection, run your updates, because there are security updates with many of the programs. So you want to do that. You run your updates, you run your virus scan, you know it's a good copy, make a backup of that, and then you're good to go, and then you can have something that you can reinstall if you ever become a victim of anything.
With regard to that, I have to be honest, in terms of this suspicious thing, sometimes I'll get those pop-ups that say you need to update, and I don't click them because I'm afraid that there's something else. So
Good. Be suspicious of them. Be suspicious of everything.
go in and do my own.
Do your own. There's ways that you can run an update yourself. You can initiate it yourself, and I'm sure there's classes down at Lapham that can kind of assist you with that. I think we have a resident expert up here at front, but you know, that's definitely the way to go. And be suspicious of everything. And you're the best virus protection out there. No matter what you buy, you're better than Norton. You're better than McAfee. Just don't click on anything in an email. Don't click anything. Be your best virus protection that you can be.
Ma'am?
How does this ransomware?
Ooh. How do you stop it?
Yeah, the ransomware, like I said, the federal law enforcement is investigating these incidents and where they're occurring and what groups are behind it. Like I said, it is predominantly a foreign-based attack, but you could purchase ransomware on the internet to use on other individuals. Yes, but again, you're at the mercy of them. But I will tell you this, that usually if you pay them the ransom, they will unlock your computer, because if it's sort of a reputation issue. If they lock down your computer, you pay the money and they don't unlock it, then they're not going to get any more money. So they actually unlock it for you. But now the question is, can they relock it a month from now? Did they steal information off your computer while they locked it? So, and it's a very, relatively new thing, and it's, like I said, a lot of times, if they don't unlock that computer, you could throw it in the garbage. It's not going to work anymore. So, again, stress data points, update everything, and make backups of everything. Well, it's basically because you probably, it's not, they've penetrated your computer by another way. They installed a virus or malware on your computer, probably because you visited a website. Maybe that wasn't a good website. Maybe it was because you clicked on an attachment to an email, or you clicked on a link that somebody sent you and their computer was infected. So it comes in various ways, but it's installed onto your computer first before they lock your computer down.
Since so many of us have tablets and smartphones, and they're tied in with our computers,
Yep.
so how does that get affected if somebody's after your information? It's
No,
affecting your tablets and smartphones too?
I will tell you this, you don't carry a phone anymore. You carry a computer with you when you carry a phone. These are not phones anymore. These aren't flip-up phones. These are computers. So there are viruses out there that can get installed on phones. Apps, apps are very popular. You could download apps. There's a bunch, if you go on YouTube and look up apps and malware, you could be buying a tic-tac-toe game. You think it's just a game, and you're actually installing a virus onto your phone to capture all your financial information. So there are virus protections out there for your phones as well. So it's something I strongly recommend you look into. You know, I will tell you that it's, you know, statistically, I'm not an expert when it comes to computer crimes, but I could tell you that the vulnerabilities are there for all the internet browsers, even Mac. You know, I will tell you that what is being told is statistically there's less viruses out there for Mac computers. And that's just really because the Macs haven't been around as long as PC-based computers. But the criminals are catching up. They're making viruses and malware for Mac products as well. So, but, you know, I can't say that they're all vulnerable at some point.
Like I said previously when we first started the presentation, be suspicious of everyone. And it's kind of funny, but it's really not. Don't trust anybody unless you really know that information is really solid and you can trust people. Call us, we'll help you. Call us first before something happens. We hate to get those calls after a crime is committed, so call us first. And one last question, by a show of hands, who wants to be a victim? Nobody, right?
That was a test.
And before you leave your credit cards and your Social Security cards on the table in the back. Thank you.